The question, just to quickly repeat, is with an FM system, the questioner was finding that she had to put the neck loop draped right over her ear to get a strong enough signal in her hearing aid. Now, who's best qualified to answer that question?
Well, there are a number of things that come into play here. What it obviously means is you aren't getting a strong enough signal off of the neck loop with it around your neck. You're having to move it up close to your hearing aid. With let me back up for a second. The receiver that you're using, was that an FM receiver or infrared receiver?
An FM receiver.
An FM receiver, okay. Normally, that should be producing enough output with neck loop. You get into the other side of the system, which is the hearing aid itself. And it may be that due to the way the hearing aid is programmed, if you have a digital hearing aid, that the gain setting for the telecoil may be set too low, or the orientation of the telecoil sometimes makes a difference. So without knowing more about the hearing aid model and how it's set up, that would be one place I would look to see if there's an adjustment in the hearing aid that can be made that would let you use it with the neck loop successfully.
So this could be a problem with the way the hearing aid is set. And I've asked the audiologist, who knows nothing at all about telecoils. Every time she adjusts it, she talks about a telephone, even though I tell her it's not for a telephone that I want it, it's for a neck loop.
Right.
What instruction should I give her in order to adjust it so that it works with a neck loop?
Well, it sounds like you're telling her the right thing, because the telecoils do have multiple purposes, and originally the focus was on what happens when I hold a telephone up next to my ear and dealing with the magnetic field strength that the telephone handset is producing. So initially, the preset, if you will, on hearing aids were designed around holding that handset right up next to the T-coil. When you're talking about using a room loop or using a neck loop with a magnetic field that's lesser than typically you'd see from a handset, they normally have to increase the gain on the telecoil. I mean, it sounds to me like you're telling her the right thing, that it's not the telephone that you need to set it for, you need to set it for a neck loop. If you have a neck loop that you could bring with you and could plug it into an iPod or a radio or some other device to provide a signal, and then have the audiologist adjust your hearing aid while you actually have a live neck loop there to work with, then you should be able to get it to a setting that'll work.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
In the case of the arena, you didn't seem to have you weren't looped at the ticket seller or the ticket takers. I was just wondering why that was.
So can I just repeat that? Sorry, the question was that in the arena system, which area wasn't looped?
The ticket sellers and ticket takers.
Ticket sellers and ticket takers, were they looped or not? I think that's the question for Todd.
At this point, they're not, but we have proposals in for them to actually do those. They just haven't done it yet. As well as about 2 or 3 of their theaters and other places on campus, so we're continuing to work with them.
Now, in the airports, they're the same issue. When they're looped, are the ticket sellers and ticket takers being looped also?
We've done 3 airports now. 2 of them have counter loops at the ticket counters. and I can't remember what the ratio is. It's not all of them, but it's a percentage of them. The third airport has a proposal to do them, but they haven't done them yet. So,
Thank you.
And the next question, please.
Thank you. I'm Ruth Warwick from Canada. My question concerns the education of engineers and individuals with technical skills to help those of us who are consumers, because I would not, be one who would be able to set up a loop system, but I'd like to be able to call someone who'd be able to do it for me. And I'm wondering what kind of education, what kind of development of professionals there are in this area.
That's a very good question. The question is, what sort of qualifications, what sort of knowledge or training should technical people have in order to design and install induction loop systems? And the questioner was talking from the Canadian point of view, but I guess this applies to the whole of North America. Which of our panel is going to be best to answer that? I can answer from the UK point of view, but that doesn't apply over here.
Yes, it is certainly a job that still needs to be done. The training courses which Doug does in the UK are an example. We may be able to put more information on the website of the Institute of Sound and Communications Engineers. That would be in the public domain, so you could get at that from Canada. You might also find it helpful to contact a Canadian gentleman called Bill Drugendijk, who is a fairly regular contributor to the Loops and Telecoils mailing list on Yahoo. Bill is basically an installer, but he's got a very good knowledge of what is needed at the practical level to make loop systems that work. So you may find that helpful. We can give you, Doug or I can give you Bill Drugendijk's email address, but I don't know whether I've got it with me, but Doug may have. But anyway, we would be able to get it to you anyway.
So my question is a bit more general. It's like what kind of education there is in the university college system so that individuals who have a technical bent, whether they're engineers or audiology assistants, are able to do this and spread this work.
Sorry, I can't hear.
The question was, in the US and in Canada, what training courses, what university courses, what college courses are available to provide the technical training that these guys need? I think maybe you've got some...
Okay, just one bit of explanation. I talked to you about specialist courses because this is a specialist technique. General courses can teach you about electrical and electronic theory, but they won't teach you about loop systems.
Yeah, the way I would answer that question is the people that you should be able to turn to for expertise and installation are the people that are installing sound systems and video systems and so on. Currently, kind of the state of the market in the US is that most of these loop installations that are taking place are being done by a relatively few number of people who have really kind of focused in and specialized. They've learned what they needed to know to be able to properly design and install loop systems. I think what needs to happen nationwide to see more loop systems installed is more education at the professional level for these installers. There is a national organization, the National Systems Contractor Association, and another industry group that's called Infocom. And they hold annual conventions and they hold educational seminars. And this is an opportunity for installers to take a course and learn more in detail about how to make a particular type of installation. And at this point, I don't believe there's any kind of a developed program for teaching about induction loops and about teaching the proper design and installation techniques. So it's really right now down to the loop manufacturers trying to provide educational materials via their websites, via their webinars and seminars where they can manage to do them, to try to train the sound system installers on how to do loop systems. So it's, at least for the U.S. market, it's pretty early days for the number of people that have the expertise to do loop systems successfully.
I just want to add one comment. We don't manufacture, so we're an installation company, and we learn from the manufacturer. Visit the manufacturers out there. Right now, that's what's out there. But Paul's right. There are places to get trained, but because I come out of the audio background, so we kind of stumbled across looping and thought it was a good idea, but the rest of the country hasn't really adapted that yet. And I think meetings like this will raise the awareness. You should be able to go to a professional audio contractor and get a loop. The problem is most of them don't really know. If you ask them, most of them would look at you funny. They don't know what you're talking about or don't do that kind of technology. But we're hoping to change that. So right now, the manufacturers are your best resort. And if you talk to some of them that are out there, they might be able to give you some more direction of people that they know that are either qualified or they can work with getting them qualified as well.
Yeah, everything that's been said is true. I just want to mention that, I don't know, for the past 10 years or so, there's been somebody, Jeannie Steinberg, I think, Steinberg, who has been at the Audio Engineering Society. And I haven't heard from her in a while, but she was trying very hard to get the Audio Engineering Society, which is a United States group, to be more aware of assistive listening and to give more training to audio engineers. So I think there's a lot of work to do in terms of getting better education on the part of audio engineers as well as installers and so forth, so that there's a greater awareness of the need. Because, and that sort of impetus for getting them more aware could very well come from the hard of hearing community. And that is actually a growing community with the baby boomers, people like me. We're getting up there. And there's more hearing loss. There's also a lot of hearing loss occurring among returning veterans, returning warriors from the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns that are also, sort of a group of people who could put pressure to get better access. So just keep that in mind.
Great question.
Thank you very much. Next question, please.
Well, Siegfried Karlik, I just have a comment to Matthew Bakke.
Matthew?
What about the idea that Gallaudet University offers a course for audiovisual engineering to do loop installations? Would be a good suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. We have to get that through the Board of Trustees. Actually, Gallaudet, yeah, it's a good thought, putting me on the spot. But actually, Gallaudet, at this point, is a liberal arts institution. It's a liberal arts university and doesn't have an engineering component at this point. So maybe, is there anyone here from RIT? Because Rochester Institute of Technology has the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, and maybe Gallaudet and NTID could work together to get something like that put together. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Yes, Trish Banks from Virginia. I'm looking for a solution. I'm hoping you can help me. I am working with a consumer, and I'm not a professional loop installer, but I am a portable loop installer, and I spend a lot of time crawling around on my knees setting up small venues. But I'm wondering about, I have a trainer. She trains at the police academy, and she has to go to different rooms. She's not just in one room. So like looping one room would not work. So it has to be something portable for her, and she's looking to have multiple microphones that she can put out in the, so that she trains at a police academy so that the policemen she can hear their questions, but she does not want them to have to walk up to a microphone. She finds that restrictive. So she's looking for some kind of a system that she would, of course, she's a cochlear implant user, so she'll be able to use her T-coil on her implant and be able to take questions and hear the audience. Right now, I set her up with a Contago FM system, which only, of course, is with a one omnidirectional mic, so she's really struggling. I did look at the DigiWave system, the new, and because you can do 2 transceivers, I was told, and I was thinking about the omnidirectional microphone attachment for that. Do you have anything portable and not too expensive that would work in that situation?
Okay, the question is there a system available that's transportable, that can be moved from room to room, that would allow a teacher or lecturer with hearing disabilities to hear the students that she's teaching using a number of microphones rather than a single omnidirectional microphone because of the problems that causes. And she's looking for a system that's not expensive, but that's going to provide the service and the function that she wants. Those may be mutually exclusive requirements, but let's see if anybody on the panel can offer any suggestions of systems that are currently available or that might be available soon that could address that problem.
Have you tried or heard of the companion mic, Etymotic? www.etymotic.com. They have a system called the companion mics. Peggy? It's out of production. Okay. I had heard that, but I wasn't sure. Okay, if that's out of production, the only recommendation, that is a system that had multiple microphones. The only other suggestion would be to try to put something together with some relatively inexpensive FM microphones and a mixer.
Right.
But it's kind of be a hand-built job from Radio Shack, but it's something that may or may not work. But if you have somebody that's technical that could help you out, maybe you could put something together. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I can add a couple of comments there. I think I would agree, looking for a very flexible wireless solution, it's going to be hard to find something that's really inexpensive. Good wireless stuff just is expensive. The DigiWave product that you mentioned would do what you want it to do. You could have a transceiver that gets handed around an audience. You can just hold it and talk into it like a telephone. And you can have 2 of those active at any time, so you could actually have more than 2 out there if you wanted to. And then the receiver is automatically picking those 2 up. So in terms of what's available off the shelf, that would do what I think you want it to do. It's not inexpensive, but not as expensive as some of the hearing aid streamer systems, for instance. The question was what it would sound like with an attached omnidirectional microphone. The product has a built-in microphone that is omnidirectional, and it has a microphone jack on it. So there are actually a number of different kinds of microphones that you could plug into it. But the one that's built into it, if it's going to be kind of a pass-around device, then it's better to not have additional cords. You could just have the self-contained device. But if it's just going to get placed somewhere, then we have like little mini directional shotgun type microphones that can plug into it. We have conference mics. We have omnidirectional.
Yeah, she doesn't want it passed because she just wants to place the equipment in the room and then, have it just stay in one place during the training. So.
Yeah, probably the best thing to do is just to arrange for a demonstration, and then you can see what the capabilities are.
Okay, thanks.
I think Steve may have something to say on this subject.
Yeah, I was sort of questioning. It's a comment, not a question, but just as I'm understanding the question, it's basically how do you pick up sound from a variety of people speaking in different areas of the room, or perhaps across the table, something like that, and not use a single omnidirectional microphone, which picks up a lot of noise and reverberation and doesn't sound very good, nobody's very loud. There's a class of product available from a variety of audio manufacturers. The one I'm most familiar with is from the Shure company because I designed it, called an automatic mixer, which can take typically at least 4 or up to 8 or 16 or however many microphones you want, depending on the size of the system. And they would typically be, say, table-mounted directional microphones, but it automatically controls and switches between the microphones in a hopefully unobtrusive way so that you can always get the sound pickup of one close directional microphone like this, but from any number of speakers, any number of people talking. And if you use that as the input to your system, I'm not saying that's cheap. It takes a number of microphones in the system, but I think it would solve that problem as much as you simply distribute as many microphones as you need, and the system takes care of the rest.
Thank you very much. Just for John's benefit, John is wearing hearing aids and he's outside of the coverage of the loop, and he can't hear the audio. John, the answer was to use an automatic microphone mixer. Shure and other companies make similar things with directional microphones, so that there's enough microphones to keep microphones close to people who are talking.
This is all very well, but that doesn't really meet the low-cost criterion. The automatic mixer is quite expensive. This is clearly one of the problems, that there is a whole range of products that could be manufactured, but that aren't. This obviously is an opportunity for manufacturers to take notice of what's being discussed here in this convention and broadening their range, because there is no technical problem at all in making the type of product that's wanted, even with a form of automatic mixing. But to use a general purpose automatic mixer for this service it's vast overkill. You wouldn't need 9/10 of the features, so you're paying 10 times as much as you should be paying for it, at least.
I did warn you that they were going to be mutually exclusive, those requirements. The next question, please.
Many states and municipalities require that installers of low voltage communications equipment be licensed, and that includes internet cables, audio and video cables, and of course looping would be come under the same category. So besides having been trained to install the loops, they would also have to be licensed by that municipality or state to do it.
Is this a requirement at the moment that loop systems, those installing the cabling, would need to be licensed?
Well, it's a low voltage electric system, so it would come under the same category as any audio or video or a communication system.
Okay. I'll just hand this over to Richard, who I think has got something to say.
Just real quick to address his questions, in the state of Florida, Wisconsin, California, and Oregon, you cannot run a telephone line without being licensed in the state legally. So those are the 4 states right now. They're going to add, looks like Oregon and Washington are both going to do it. So you cannot run without getting a permit or a license. Now, you don't have to be a full-level electrical contractor, but you have to be licensed to install in those states. Thank goodness it's not Virginia.
But is that going to include loop systems? It is. Okay. Okay. That answers a question that came up earlier on. Thank you, Richard. Next question, please.
Hi, my name is Michael. This is kind of a 2-part question geared towards Doug and Todd. based on your presentation. Doug, when you laid down the test loops, as you say in the tube there,
Yeah.
were you laying those down in a specific area you planned on actually putting them permanently? Or was it just like, say, the floor and maybe you were going to worry about the ceiling later? How did you come up with that test loop pattern there?
Okay, yeah, we did look at what the likely installation position was going to be for the loop system, because if we'd laid the loop system just where we felt like laying it, we may not have discovered the metalwork problems that were going to be in the places where the loops were really needed. So, for instance, on the platforms, we ran them pretty much the entire length of a platform, long, thin loops. Todd was talking about long, thin loops in the stadium, and how you can run those with quite low current requirements. We made sure that if we were testing the walkways, that we were putting the loop cables right up against the edges, some of which were metal lined. We thought the metal would give us a problem. Interestingly, it didn't give us much of a problem. So yeah, we were thinking carefully about where we would have to install the loop cabling if that was going to be a requirement, and then making sure that we tested where the loop was going to go.
So if they didn't work in that specific spot, did you move them somewhere else, say ceiling if one was available or something?
Not really. Most of the places that loops could have been installed, most of the ceiling wasn't really an option. Part of the reason was that a lot of the ceilings have expanded metal mesh in them, and expanded metal mesh is a problem when it comes to magnetic fields. So almost always we were going to install them at ground level by cutting a shallow channel into the concrete, and then dropping the cable into it and filling it back with cement. So all of the loops that we tested were at ground level, because that was the only place London Underground would allow us to install them.
Okay. So
just to comment on that too, maybe not just on the arena, but after you do a number of these, you develop a keen eye as to what to look for when you walk into any room. And we're always trying to provide the best solution for the cost. So I've always said I've not been in a facility yet that we've not been able to provide a loop. However, some become much more expensive than others, removable of floor materials or carpeting or things like that. So typically when we walk into a room, we're looking for that best location, both for the way it'll work and for the cost of installation. And that's where we try to start and lay our test loop there first. And then we start moving into alternative needs if that doesn't work.
Because it wouldn't be cost effective to test loop all those crevices you did to see if it works. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We kind of walk in and we go, well, okay, where can we put the wire and where do we think it will work? And then we'd lay a test loop there. It doesn't take that long to lay a test loop, really. I mean, you can do it fairly quickly and get some quick measurements in working through the process.
In London Underground, we had an additional problem that much of the structure is what's called listed status. That means it's very old, it mustn't be disturbed, it's a critical heritage importance, so there are a lot of limitations about where we could or where we couldn't, and the floor is about the only place that they don't consider to be too much of a heritage issue.
The other thing is, the nice thing is we could actually have the place with nobody in it. Yeah. I'd like to hear him tell me what he did with all the people running around.
Well, we tried to do some of the tests at night, where they have what they call engineering hours, where they switch the traction current off, and it's time when maintenance people can come in and do work. And some of the stations where we were carrying out these tests, there are actually more people working on the station at night than go through the station during the day. It's always a big problem.
You actually mentioned on your presentation that most of your testing was done during the day for real-life presentations, right?
Yeah, like testing for noise we did during the day, so that all the electrical equipment was on. But in order to test for metalwork, to lay the loops out, we couldn't do that with the public walking all over it, so we did those in engineering hours.
Okay, thank you.
I think John wanted to add something.
What triggered it in my mind was long, thin loops. And it's not, this is a case of interference, which just possibly might arise. I've had two cases of it in Britain. The railways are using a signalling system which involves passing audio frequency tones through the running rails. I won't go into all the technical details, but this creates an induction loop which is naturally 4 feet 8.5 inches wide and can be up to 2 miles long. So the current in the rails is quite large. Now, if you have any induction loop receivers above, below, or fairly close on either side of this railway, then you are going to experience interference. And of course, in this case, it's really quite difficult to do anything about it.
Thank you, John. Next question, please.
I'm Virginia Ewing from Houston, Texas, and we are very interested down there in doing in Houston what they did in Holland, Michigan, which means looping, you know, as many as possible of all the facilities down there. We have already looped the sanctuary at St. Luke's and one other room, and we plan to do another one shortly. My question is, I think the churches are the way to start, but we'd also like to do some recreational places. Now, I attended Wicked the other night, and I could not hear with either my cochlear implant or my hearing aid. I could not hear the words, and I'm wondering, is it feasible to try to loop a big, stage like that? That's my first question. I mean, can you do that where people can actually hear with a looping system?
The question is, the lady attended the Wicked theatrical production night before last, I think it was, and she couldn't hear the loop system very well. And she's asking a question, in principle, is it a problem to loop areas like theatre seating, places of entertainment?
No is the very short answer. It's perfectly possible to loop places of entertainment, even really quite difficult locations. It just costs more. But my understanding is that that particular venue is not actually very difficult, but there were some technical problems with the sound system, which limited the field strength, limited the magnetic field strength that could be achieved from the loop system without interfering with the sound system. Now that is that was diagnosed by the ampetronic experts. They know why it's happened. It's easy to cure it, but they didn't happen to have the right equipment with them at the time. But it's a typical example of incorrect sound system design. I'm not going to go into any more technical details, but it's a known problem, and the cure is known, and there is no problem with looping areas like the venue in question.
Well, I would have thought that the Kennedy Theater, of all the places in the United States, would have, the very best equipment, but that's not true.
Yeah, we've done several theaters. It's just there's not enough of us yet. I mean, that's really the answer. It's a new thing in the United States, and it's growing, but we need more people like our company.
Do they do this in Europe? Do they loop the theaters over there successfully?
Yes, they do, but we have a problem. It's something I've been talking to a few people here about. In the UK, we have a lot of loop installations. The problem that we have is that not all of those loop installations work satisfactorily. And it's a big job, it's a tough job to try and raise the standard of loop installation. Perhaps here in the States, because with people like the HLAA pushing the process forward, that you're going to be able to achieve a lot better loop installations than perhaps we have over the years in the UK.
Well, maybe we need your guys' advice how to do that.
Happy to do that. In fact, if anybody wants to come tomorrow to the Strategies for Success panel session, I'm spending just 5 or 10 minutes talking about the training that I do with the Institute of Sound and Communications Engineers in the UK and Europe. Coming back to the Wicked presentation, I think part of the problem there was the time involved. The loop system had to be installed very quickly. With a normal loop installation, there would be time to plan it properly, to perhaps redesign parts of the existing sound system so that there wasn't this problem that John alluded to. And I'm guessing, I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing there just wasn't the time to sort that out properly.
So it was not, so that was just installed recently for us, for example? Oh, yeah. I see. I assumed that they had that before.
I don't know if anybody is here who was involved in the installation. Somebody is. They can give us a little bit more information.
I see. Okay, my second question, very briefly, is are theaters, can you loop theaters very easily and movie theaters? Is that a possibility?
Any facility that has fixed seating in it can be looped. It's just a matter of cost and how.
Okay.
So,
are they terribly expensive? Say one of the multiplex theaters that has numerous ones, could you loop just one or more rooms if you could persuade them to do that fairly easily?
Yes.
Okay.
The hard part, if I could say a couple of words, the hard part is not actually the loop installation. Sometimes it's the theater production, the way they mix the performance, the type of the microphones they use. Sometimes they have very close-up microphones. Sometimes they use wide area mics, and that produces a quality in the sound that is not always the best for people with hearing loss. It may come okay in the sound reinforcement system, the speakers, but oftentimes they don't make everything. You may hear more of one thing than the other, and the quality is not always there. But that is not a problem with the loop per se. It's a problem with the mix of the audio and how they send it off to the loop system. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's just one gentleman here who's got something to say about the installation.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of the installation. I just know that the real issues are just coming from it was a temporary loop laid down quickly. I think it was night before, day before, something like that. So it had to be done very quickly, and it was a temporary project. So like you alluded to, don't have the time to figure out all the details. That are normally figured out on a permanent install. So those permanent installations will always be better where you have those time to work out all issues. So
we have a saying in the UK, most haste, least speed. Can we just take one more question? We should have finished 10 minutes ago, but I'm prepared as moderator to allow it to go on a bit longer. So could we have one more question, please?
Okay. Hi, I'm Terry from Falls Church, Virginia, real close to here. This is all new to me, and I really appreciate the information in this. I just wear hearing aids, and I don't even have a T-coil activated, even though it has that capability. So this is very helpful to me. I just have a quick comment and a question. The comment, from what I'm hearing, is we have a shortage of people that know how to do this. So maybe one thing that we can all do is go back to our hometowns and talk to local universities and suggest that they start developing courses for their engineering students and get some of you all maybe to come be presenters and start getting the right technical people educated in this area. And my question is it feasible or possible or any airlines or Amtrak or anybody looping planes or trains? I never can hear announcements on planes or trains. And I mean, I have everything set right. It's just with the noise and everything, I just don't hear. And it seems like it'd be a very simple matter to loop a plane where you could hear the flight attendants and the pilots' announcements through something like this. Is that possible?
Thank you. The question, John, was, is it possible to provide loop systems on trains and planes because the acoustic announcements are very difficult to hear for people with hearing aids? Anybody like to address that?
Well, the short answer is sometimes. There are difficulties, but in many cases it can be done.
there is a big problem with background magnetic noise in some locations, and that is difficult to overcome. But as John said, in principle, it's possible in many cases. We talked earlier on about looping London cabs, and it's many of the rail services, rail networks have loop systems on their trains, but there are background noise issues that need to be dealt with as well.
One possible solution there, this isn't the ideal, this isn't looping, but if you find yourself on an aircraft, if they have the little stereo jacks that you plug the headphones into to watch movies, normally you can hear the announcements through that jack as well. So it does mean you'd have to plug something in, a neck loop or a direct audio input connector of some kind, but if you do connect to that, then you would be able to hear those announcements through that jack. It's not perfect, but it's something.
But not with a loop. Not with a plane, not with a loop.
Because of the background noise level. Joe's saying not with a loop, not with a neck loop, because of the background noise problem. Yeah. Thank you all very much indeed. Good afternoon to you.